Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night at the local time. The first important events are coming from the eastern part of Russian Federation, to be more precise from the space launch base Vostochny. In this area, as you can see, Vladimir Putin on this video met the leader of Kim Chen-in this morning of the local time. They have already discussed everything they needed. I believe that they have already signed a lot of agreements, but the most important from this meeting is that the Russians and the North Koreans took a decision to make this meeting exactly in this area. So basically this is something like a message. The message to the Western countries, the message to Ukraine that the Russians are going to provide the North Korean the technologies of spaceship launches, of space rockets and so on. Probably they will give them some services, and the North Korea probably promised the Russians to support them with their 152mm rounds. Furthermore, the North Koreans probably promised Putin to provide him the missiles and the rockets and so on. And we know that North Korea has the biggest warehouses, biggest ammo depots of 152mm shells. Basically, they have millions of these type of rounds. And if Putin signed this agreement, of course, we understand that Putin have supported and provided everything necessary for the Russian army before the next Russian attempt, Russian greatest counter-offensive operation that will take place in the autumn, winter, and of course the early spring of 2025. And basically 20 million rounds is something like a rain that will fall on the Ukrainians' heads during the next few months. I believe that the situation is going to be very critical for the Ukrainians if the Russians start receiving this type of rounds. Another interesting update is coming from Crimea. This night the Western countries, the Ukraine to be more precise, attacked this territory, attacked Crimea with around 10 missiles. The Russian sources started first saying that those missiles was like a Western production or something like this, but later we got details, and according to information we have, the Ukrainians were using around 10 missiles for these purposes, and they were using S-200 missiles that were rebuilt for the purposes land-to-land attacks or something like this. And the Russians reported that they managed to shoot down at least 7 missiles, but 3 of those missiles managed to get the target. First, we got this video from the Ukrainian. Mainly we are receiving video just from the Ukrainian sources. For some reasons the Russians are not publishing the videos of explosions and so on. For example, on this video we could see the explosion, the fire, but later we got more details, and this is like another explosion in the area. We see like the secondary detonation and so on. So the damage, probably the Ukrainians managed to damage. Later we got more details about the types of weapon that were damaged. According to the Ukrainian sources, they managed to attack and damage the Russian submarine and another marine boat, something like this. And this is probably a very big message from the Ukrainian side, and the Western countries by this attack during the meeting between Vladimir Putin and Kim Chen-in tried to tell the Russians that if you are going to sign agreement with the North Koreans, we are going to provide Ukrainians everything they need, and not just like nuclear depleted rounds or some uranium depleted rounds or something like this. They're going to provide Ukrainians also long-range missiles. And we know that the Russians do have problems with the long-range superiority. For example, today we got another series of video how the Ukrainians were attacking the Russian artillery systems with Storm Shadow missiles or HIMARS missiles. With the HIMARS missiles, as you can see, another M-S Russian middle range and low range artillery system was destroyed by the Ukrainian HIMARS missiles from the hidden position. This is not just the only video. Another video we got some from the Vremivka tactical bridgehead, another Russian artillery system that was trying to attack the Ukrainian positions or to support the Russian defense forces in the vicinity of Novomayorsk and Novodonetsk, and this system also was destroyed, as you can see, with HIMARS missiles. and with HIMARS missiles. So as you can see, there are a lot of problems with the long range, and we see that Ukrainians, they're not counting their artillery systems, their HIMARS missiles. They can't like counterattack the Russians with their own low range and middle range artilleries, but they have complete superiority on the long range. And another episode took place in the vicinity of Donetsk. Another Russian artillery system, Star S, was destroyed, probably also with HIMARS system. So there are problems, and we see that the conflict is going to escalate more. When talking about the situation on the ground, I have updated the map. I have established, like, colored the territory in the west of Verbove with a yellow color. That means that Ukrainians managed to develop their positions almost to the edge part of Verbova. They established control over the tree lines in this area. The Russians published more videos how they were bombing and attacking the Ukrainians in the trenches in the, like, on the western part of Verbova. The Ukrainian sources also reported that the Russians launched something like a counter-attack on the north of Verbova, but we haven't received even a single video or photo confirmation of that. So I suppose that basically the mappers of the western pro-Ukraine mappers tried to fix the bug or problem that they created a few weeks ago, saying that the Ukrainians managed to capture. Now they just want to fix the issue, showing that the Russians counterattacked. Neither the Russians nor the Ukrainians were attacking in this direction. So this is just like attempt to hide their mistakes or something like this. It's my opinion, of course. Another interesting updates are coming from Klishchiivka area. The clashes continue. The Russians still control Andreevka, but the Ukrainians try to attack the settlement with all types of weapons they have. Furthermore, this night we got some update from the Russian sources that the Russians left the settlement, but I don't think so. I believe that maybe the Russians not left but entered the underground facilities that lays below the railways. And as we discussed yesterday, if you remember, I told you that there is like underground facilities, underground tunnels that the Russians use to supply and support and rotate their forces. And for example, probably the Ukrainians managed to discover one of those underground facilities, and the Ukrainians during the previous night and during previous days were attacking and bombing these underground facilities heavily. As you can see, this is the entrance, and this is the way how the Russians can support Andreevka and make rotations. And this area was under very heavy fire by the Ukrainian forces with just regular rounds, with cluster rounds. You see the Russians enters this territory, then the Ukrainians start bombing. So this is the reason of successful Russian defense. They have possibilities to hide their personnel under the railways, and as soon as the Ukrainians stop attacking, the Russians can leave this territory and to get positions in Andreevka. Furthermore, the Ukrainians made few attempts to storm the settlement from the west. On this video we can see how the Ukrainian grenade launcher was attacking Andreevka from the west with grenades and so on, but yet no attempts to start storming the settlement physically. The Ukrainians understand that currently they don't have chances to capture the settlement. Also, we got more details, more videos from the north and west of Klishchiivka. As I understand, and probably the next time I will color the western part of Klishchiivka in the gray zone, because as I understand, the Russians were forced to step back. On this video we see how the Ukrainians managed to discover the Russian reconnaissance team that was operating during the night, and as a result of artillery strike, a building was destroyed where the Russians were trying to hide. And that attack was made by the 80s Air Assault Brigade, this one. And the Russians published the video how they were attacking and bombing the Ukrainians on the northern part of Klishchiivka as well. And that's it for this short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.